Welcome back to Africa, Part 2. We're going to start with Benin. Now, Benin was a fantastically advanced city, southwest Nigeria. It had a thriving complex of palaces, chief houses, workshops. They worked with ivory, wood, leather, as well as metal. The palace faced north in the direction associated with Iguwu, the god of thunder and power. The palace of the Queen Mother, who was an important counselor to her son, but, importantly enough, was not allowed to see him once he became king. That palace is actually outside the outer city wall. Here is an illustration of what Benin looked like. And again, this is a very advanced city in southwest Nigeria. They are producing these fantastic goods. In fact, for the longest time, it was thought that these were created by or influenced by the Europeans, but they weren't. They were native creations. And here's an image of the royal quarter in Benin City in 1897. That's an important date, which we'll get to in a minute. So on this altar, you'll notice the beautiful carved ivory tusks from the elephants. Here's a couple in the museum's collection. So you can see there's a couple of different ways of doing it. A little more decorative, where we have a female figure and some animals, like maybe a gecko or lizard and snake and things. This is actually telling the story of, and it's kind of winding around the tusk. Queen Mother. This is from the early 16th century. The Queen Mother, in this case, is Ayoba. She was the highest ranking woman in the Benin court. She's wearing what would have been coral bead necklaces, as you can see, and an elegant headdress. This is a stylized image. This is a very light, thin-walled bronze head that was reminiscent of this early Benin period. The middle period starts around 1550 and is a little heavier, thicker walled, especially as we get into the 1700s. Even though it's stylized, a lot of detail, again, we can see all the beads of her necklaces, that intricate headdress, just really well done. And again, bronze is one of the things that they do really well. This is a pectoral or hip mask. It's an ivory. This also is representing the Queen Mother, Ayoba Adia, who was the mother of Oba Isiji, who ruled from 1504 to 1550. He probably would have worn this pendant on his belt as a memorial to her after she died. Up top, this looks a little interesting up here. This is actually the faces of Portuguese soldiers appear in a crest as they alternate with mudfish, which is a symbol of Olokun, god of the sea, wealth, and fertility. Iron inlays are in the pupils. They would have been, you can see that they've fallen out, but you can see some iron inlays here. You would have had those in the pupils. You can see them surrounding the eyes and in the scarification marks up top of the forehead. You can also see that she is again wearing a choker, an elegant necklace. The mudfish is a creature that lives both on land and water and is a symbol of the king's dual nature as both human and divine. I said that I would say what the importance of 1897. Well, the British decided to expand their trade in the 19th century, and the Benin decided they did not like this, and so they killed their envoys. So in 1897, the British sent an armed expedition which captured the King of Benin, destroyed his palace, and basically looted all the sculpture, regalia, all these beautiful works in wood, ivory, and brass. The Benin altars that you saw earlier, they were burned by the British naval expedition, and palace collections were sold off. This is a Benin bronze. These would have actually lined the walls of the palace. The amount of intricate detail in these bronze pieces is absolutely amazing. And here's actually some photos of the British basically looting the area. As you can see, they've been rounding up all of the goods they can get a hold of. It's a very sad. So you can see here are some of the elephant tusks. So to talk a little bit more about Benin as a city, it was the world's largest earthworks before the mechanical era. It's 4 times longer than the Great Wall of China and consumed more material than the Great Pyramid of Cheops. It encompassed 500 distinct villages that extended for 16,000 kilometers or 52,500 feet in all. It took an estimated 150 million hours of digging to construct Benin City and the surrounding area. Benin City was also one of the first cities to have street lighting. There was these lamps, they were fueled by palm oil. Their wicks were lit at night to provide illumination from traffic to and from the palace. We're talking well before the electric era, or when street lighting was even common in European cities. The Portuguese first, quote, discovered the city in 1485. Now, the city, remember, had been around since the 11th century. They were convinced that the city had been influenced by other Europeans. There was a high degree of planning and design, symmetry and proportionality in the design of the city, the layout, as well as the buildings itself. The city and its surrounding villages were purposely laid out to form perfect fractals, if you can imagine that. The main streets, which ran at right angles to each other, had underground drainage made of sunken impluvium with an outlet to carry away storm water. Narrow side and intersecting streets extended off of them. In the middle of the streets were turf on which the animals fed. So they thought about everything. The people of Benin City dressed in colorful clothing and white, yellow, blue, green, wearing nature-inspired colors. The city is actually split into 11 different divisions. So it talked about the King's Court, workshops, public buildings, houses, these types of things. And again, most of this is created out of clay, but they would put pebbles or pieces of mica into the wet clay, or in the palace, they would put the bronze plaques that we saw earlier. And so this would actually help preserve the buildings and the walls, having this protection over the clay. And the picture you're looking at now are some of the British soldiers, and they are just surrounded by those Benin plaques. These are the plaques that we're talking about here. Okay, now we have a door from the King's Palace at Akere, and Yoruba is the culture, and Nigeria is the country. Lawe of Ice was the artist. His dates are 1860 to 1938. He directed over 15 assistants carving posts, chairs, doors, drums, and ritual objects for royal patrons. This is a set of doors for the king, Akere Ikiti. The doors separated a veranda where the king sat during certain ceremonies from a shrine displaying an image of the king's head. The panels actually document the visit of the British Commissioner of Ondo Province, Captain Ambrose, to the Ikari-Ikiti court in 1897. The doors were shipped to Britain to be shown at the British Empire Exhibition in London in 1924. In exchange for the doors, a British-made throne was given to Olawe. So in this case, it was not stolen. It was actually a trade. We actually have the king on his throne with his beaded crown and his principal wife awaiting Ambrose. So here we have the king on his throne with his crown, and there's his principal wife awaiting Ambrose, who is being carried in this litter. So there's the litter, and there's Ambrose. Above them are armed guards. You see there? And below we have more military men and more wives, who the wives appear as witches, which symbolize the king's power. Remember, in African cultures, women are either mothers or witches or both. Those are both very powerful female symbols. Olawe of Ice is considered by many to be one of the most important Yoruba artists of the 20th century. He carved several of these doors as well as other pieces of furniture. Olawe lived in Ice for most of his life. We're not sure if he could read or write in English or in Yoruba. When he was a young man, he served as a court messenger. He's a self-taught artist. He carved masks, figures, divination boards, and drums. He also would carve children's toys and game boards. This was installed at the entrance to the timber exhibit at the Nigerian Pavilion at the British Empire Exhibition at Wembley in London in 1924. Let's talk about these gelede figures here. Gelede is performed to serve and honor the women, specifically the elders, mothers, ancestors, and deities. As guardians of society, they have powers equal to or greater than the gods. So with women, we celebrate harvest and fertility. The gelede rituals begin with night songs and dances performed in the marketplace. So the marketplace has to do with the female energy. This is where the fruits of the harvest go. This is also where the women tend to be. They're in the marketplace. They're selling. They're buying. This is a female area. In the market is also where women can actually accumulate wealth and status independently of their husbands. The market is also the heart of society, a place where the spirits can enter our world. The first night climaxes when a male performer, Oro Efe, chants and dances and is able to say anything with total immunity from communal sanctions, with the authority granted by the female head of the ritual. So that's kind of an interesting twist on everything. This person is able to say anything without repercussions. Can you imagine that? The gelede ceremonies reinforce traditional values, including the roles of men and women in Yoruba life. And here is a Yoruba gelede mask that we have on display at the museum. Here's a couple other ones. If you notice the mask, it's not a mask that you look through. It goes on top of the head, and then you've got something covering the face. But again, you do cover all aspects of your body. Very bright and colorful. We're going to talk about the Igbo culture here. So here is an Igbo spirit mask. On the right, you see the one at the museum. And on the left, you see how it would have been worn in the full costume. This again has to do with the female. It symbolizes the ideal of young female beauty, but it belongs to the men's society and is worn by young men on harvest festivities, dealing with the yams and yam rites. It's an annual ceremony to honor the earth spirit, Ene, as well as worn during funerals of prestigious members of societies. So you can see that the men have these very elaborate costumes. You'll also notice that they have the false breasts, again, to symbolize the female. And the elaborate hairdos. This is representing elaborate hairdos that, again, women would wear. We have the painted face. Again, it's all meant to represent the ideal young female look. There's another mask and outfit. So here is the Igbo Mbari house. Again, we're still in Nigeria. The Mbari house is a shrine for Allah. It says Allah is the earth goddess. So you would have rituals of offerings and prayers to accompany each stage of building the house. You would build one of these houses if you were experiencing drought, bad harvests, or people are dying for no apparent reason. And also, no person is allowed to enter the house after it is dedicated. It can take up to 2 years to build one of these and can be very expensive. So you only, again, build one of these when there are some dire circumstances. The largest house was built in 1946 and had 230 sculptures on it. Once community leaders decide a house must be built, they select a sacred site and commission an artist with local priests and diviners. An Igbo artist serves a 6 to 10 year apprenticeship and works with a recognized artist on 15 different houses before becoming an independent master. These houses are built of clay, wood, thatch. The main aspect of these houses are these porches or niches in which these clay figures can be displayed. That is the purpose, the focus of these houses. And they represent generic types of people from the community. And so as time has progressed, these have also progressed. So you can see policemen, football players, boxers, telephone operators, motorcyclists. So all aspects of modern society are represented in these figures. Allah, the earth goddess, is the most important. So she is the last figure to be completed. You'll also notice that the figures are all painted as well. All right, we've now moved to Cameroon and the Bamoun Kingdom. So this is King Njoya, seated on his throne. He ruled from 1886 to 1931. You typically will hold your hands in front of your mouth so that your breath and saliva will not reach the king. So kind of same importance as today, seems like. King Njoya became king in his teens when his father died in battle. He is credited with inventing a writing system. And again, he ruled until 1931 when he was exiled by the French. So let's talk about his throne. So you see him seated on his throne there. Here is another wonderful image of him on his throne. And there's the throne. So let's get into what we're looking at here. So first of all, King Njoya gave his throne to Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany in 1908 because the Kaiser had helped retrieve the head of his father, Nsangu, which had been kept by the enemy, the Missile. And so this was, again, a gift to the Kaiser. Let's start with the two figures up here. All right, so these are twins, a male and a female. These are fertility symbols and court guardians. The male figure holds a drinking horn, and his other hand is raised to his face in a gesture of respect. The female twin holds a calabash bowl containing an offering of kola nuts or other food. The headdresses are patterned with frogs, which symbolize fertility. By the way, the bowl will also represent the womb. The drinking horn is also a phallic symbol, So again, emphasizing the male and female aspects here. The two figures on the bottom of the throne, here and here, are holding rifles and are said to symbolize Najoya's use of traditional wisdom in his rule. The figures down here are court officials. So interestingly enough, he puts his feet literally on those people. The double-headed serpent that we see here in this middle section represents the great military ruler King Mbembu, who wore a serpent belt, which symbolized his strength in battle. And that is the representation we see on the seat. Cowrie shells represent wealth. And on the sides, so the ends of their footrest, are spiders. So you can see the spider here on the side. So you can see on this version of the throne, you can see one of the female figure here, the male figure here, the horn, again, the hand to the face. The woman is again holding the bowl. We've got the double-headed snakes, the court officials. We have the figures holding the rifles, and there is again the spiders. And the spiders represent wisdom and diligence. And you can see some of these in this image as well. The Bamon Palace was an extensive palace. It had 72 rooms, 26 courtyards, and housed over 2,000 people, including his 1,200 wives and 350 children. It's a lot. It encompassed over 20 acres. The central area belonged to the king, the right side to the wives and the princes, and the left side to the administration. In 1915, Najoya commissioned one of his sons to build him another palace at Fombang, and this one was a 3-story European-style palace with Roman and Islamic-style arches, and he lived there until 1931. And there is the outline of the palace. So this is the 1915 one, as you can see. Roman, Islamic style arches, very much the European style in this 1915 palace. So now let's go to Mali. This is the Great Mosque, or the Janneh Mosque. It is made of adobe bricks, a mixture of clay, straw, and binders set in molds and dried in the sun. Janneh was founded between 800 and 1250 AD. It flourished as a center of commerce, learning, and Islam. Islam has been practiced in this region beginning in the 13th century. The French took control of Mali in 1892. The Great Mosque was probably erected around the 13th century under King Khoi Konboro, Janneh's 26th ruler and its first Muslim sultan. They decided to use local materials and design techniques to build this mosque. So this is geographically in this transitional zone between the Sahara and the humid savannas of the south. So you see a lot of adobe and mud brick buildings in this area, but they often require annual replastering. The roof has several holes covered by terracotta lids, which provide its interior spaces with fresh air in the hottest days. At the top of the pillars, so these right here are these ostrich egg looking things right here at the very top. These ostrich eggs are a symbol of fertility and purity in the Malian region. The timber beams that you can see poking out are both decorative as well as structural. They also as a function as a way to adhere scaffolding for the replastering of the mosque during the annual festival. There are several videos on Canvas about this. During this festival, the entire city contributes to the replastering of the mosque's exterior by kneading the local materials into a mud plaster made from a mixture of butter and fine clay from the alluvial soil of the nearby Niger and Bani rivers. The men of the community usually do the mixing of the construction material. Musicians entertain them during the labors, and women are providing the water to create this mixture. The entire town gets in on the process. And again, there's some great videos if you're interested in seeing them. So now you can see it's a very large structure. You can also see those areas again. Those are kind of those lids that would be open to actually allow air circulation. So you're not trapped in this very hot building. It's allowing air circulation during those hot periods. And there you can see a close-up again. So you would be able to lift those off and allow some air circulation. And there is a close-up of the ostrich egg that I was telling you about earlier. There's the couple of interior shots. And this is a shot of them during some of the preparation stages to replaster the mosque. And there you see them actually up on the scaffolding, those timbers that are coming out. Again, those are structural as well as allowing for this process to continue. And you can see that we have the whole community out working on this. This is the Chihuahua antelope headdress. This one's a male version, so there's a male and a female. The Chihuahua combines the anteater, antelope, and human. So anteater, antelope, and human. It represents fertility as well as agriculture. So the dance ceremonies utilizing these Chihuahua headdresses were once secret male ceremonies designed to instill in young boys the importance of diligent farming techniques. Today, the Chihuahua festivities and ceremonies include women. It's not secret, and it is not entirely male, though it still has the male emphasis. We also, again, are focusing in on the agriculture. These headdresses are attached to woven raffia caps. Their entire bodies would be covered in these raffia costumes. And the wearers would be doing these leaping movements like antelopes, as well as doing hoeing movements, signifying working in the fields. As the farmers are dancing, females are imitating their movements and singing praise songs. These Chihuahua headdresses are carved in male and female forms. And again, that connection between male and female, as well as the reference here is with male is sun and earth is female. The raffia symbolizes water, so the connection between all of these is you need the sun, you need the earth, and you need water to create a good harvest. The horns represent millet stalks, a staple food of the Bamana region. So the Chihuahua activities are sponsored by the Taiwara Society. Tai means work, and Wara means animal. The purpose of this society is to solicit the blessings of the Chihuahua, to teach essential farming skills, and promote festivals. So we also have two distinct styles. We have the vertical, which is what this is, representing open work representing the mane and neck of the antelope. And the second style is horizontal, a little more abstract. So we'll see a look at that too. So again, this is the male and vertical style, very abstracted. This is the male Chihuahua headdress that we have at the museum. And so you can see it's a lot closer to the animals. We've got the antelope represented really with the facial structure. The anteater has more to do with the body here. And it actually ends here. This is part of a base that had been attached by the previous owner. So it really ends here and then would have had the raffia attached at that point. And here is an example of the horizontal, so you can see how that looks. And here they are with the complete outfit. So again, we have the raffia covering the entire face and body. So here we've got the male and the female, and male and female. So with the female, if you notice, we have a little baby. So you can definitely tell this is the female with the little baby. So male and female. And here's another male and female example. So now let's talk about some of the cloth. We're still in Bamana in Mali. We're going to talk about Bogolavini, or mud cloth. That's what you'll actually typically hear it referred to often. Men actually do the weaving on narrow looms. They stitch the strips together. They're typically in 3 by 5 feet sheets. Women typically do the dyeing. They dye them yellow and then paint them with mud from the river bottoms. White is created by bleaching out some of the areas. Hunters will oftentimes use these as camouflage. Women use them during initiation ceremonies. This technique of using this cotton fabric dyed using a process of fermented mud dates back to the 12th century. Again, there's some great videos on Canvas about this. So again, men are actually doing the weaving of the cloth, and then the cloth is dyed typically by women. It's dyed in baths of leaves and branches of trees. This acts as a mordant. The cloth is then yellow at this point. It is then sun-dried, so it's kind of bleached a little bit. And the patterns are painstakingly painted with a special mud collected from ponds during the previous seasons and left to ferment. That's an important aspect of this. As the cloth dries, the dark mud turns gray, and the cloth is washed to remove the mud. This process is repeated numerous times. So this isn't just do it real quick kind of process. Here is an example of a woman who is, she's working on some of the bleaching areas here, and there is a close-up of one of the patterns. So again, we have some of the yellow and the darker browns and the bleached white. Another example here. Unless you think that these are all just pretty patterns, they're actually representing things. So here are some of the examples of what they represent. So you can tell a whole story just in one of these cloths. Again, here's some more patterns. So we have everything from, this is representing family, community. This represents wealth and luxury. This refers to the bone of a snake. I thought that one was kind of an interesting one. And then this is representing the flower of the calabash. Iguana's elbow. Oh, yeah, that one was another one I thought was interesting. So now we're going to talk about kente cloth. Kente is sometimes also referred to as a basket cloth. We're talking about the Volta region in Ghana. So in this case, we are talking about bright, vivid colors. And again, the colors have meanings. So blue means peace and harmony. Green is vegetation and spiritual renewal. Maroon is Mother Earth and healing. Red is blood, sacrificial rituals and death. White is purity. Yellow, gold, so preciousness, royalty. There are over 300 established patterns of kente cloth. So here's a couple of examples. You can see there's a wide variety of colors and patterns. Now we're going to talk about fantasy coffins. We're talking in Ghana here. And this is in a Ga funeral procession. So the Ga is an ethnic and linguistic group of 2 million living near Accra, which is the capital of Ghana. So the idea here is that life as we know it continues after death. So it's thought that these fantasy coffins started with the coffin maker Seth Kane Kwe in the 1950s. He created an airplane coffin for his grandmother who always wanted to fly. So in the Ga belief, the spectacle of the elderly deceased woman traveling to the other world in an airplane would raise her status in that other world. So the coffins are only seen on the day of the burial when they are buried with the deceased in them. They represent oftentimes the dead people's professions. Only people with a high enough status are allowed to be buried in these types of coffins. You'll often see various animals such as lions, cockerels, crabs, and they'll oftentimes represent clan totems. Similarly, only the heads of the families are permitted to be buried in coffins such as these. Some of these coffin shapes also evoke proverbs, which can be interpreted in different ways. So here's a couple of other ones. Here's one of a cell phone with the hands reaching out, in reference to the other world there. And there you've got a lion, an eagle, an airplane, so several examples there. A Nike tennis shoe. Here's some one that represents bolts of kente cloth here. The Walkman. So here is one representing the Walkman. There's one representing a gecko there, turtle. You can see a wide variety. So some are interesting, and the reasons of the choices could be interesting as well. Harriet Powers. She was an African-American woman who was born a slave in Georgia in 1837. She is well known for her pictorial quilts. Only a couple of these survive today. And she dictated a description of each square of her quilt to Jenny Smith, who had purchased the first quilt Powers made, and arranged it for it to be exhibited at the Cotton States Exhibition in Atlanta in 1895. This is actually her second quilt. It is thought to have been commissioned by a group of faculty ladies at the Atlanta University and given as a gift to a retiring trustee. So here is what she described as the explanation of the different panels. So on the first row, we're going to start over here. So this is Job praying for his enemies. And on top there, we've got Job's coffin. So the second one here, this is May 19th, 1780. The 7 stars were seen at 12 noon in the day. The chickens went to roost, trumpets blown. The sun went off to a small spot and then to darkness. Again, these are Harriet's words. So in other words, it was an eclipse. And so we have this eclipse happening and kind of maybe some barnyard chaos as well. So the third one, this is a serpent lifted up by Moses and women bringing their children to look upon it and be healed. Then we've got Adam and Eve in the garden. Eve is tempted by the serpent. We've got the sun and the moon. This is Adam's rib. There's Adam's rib. So we've got Adam, Adam's rib, Eve, the snake, the moon, and the sun there. Then this last one of the top row is John baptizing Christ and the Spirit of God descending and resting upon his shoulders like a dove. Second row, we have Jonah cast overboard, swallowed by a whale. We've got second one here. God created two of every kind for the ark, male and female. Third one here, the falling of the stars, November 13th, 1833. So it also said, again, this is her words, the varmints rushed out of their beds. Then we've got this one over here. Again, we have two of every kind of creature. So again, another ark-related one. And then this one is the angels of wrath and the seven veils. The seven-headed beast and the 10 horns. The rose of the water. So Revelation's there. So let's go down to the third row. February 10th, 1895. A woman frozen while at prayer. A man with a sack of meal frozen. Icicles formed from the breath of a mule. And the idea here is that it was apparently a very cold day. And several people died of the cold. The next one over, this is Red Light Night of 1846. A man tolling the bell to notify the people of the wonder. Women, children, and fowls frightened by God's merciful hand caused no harm to them. So not sure exactly what that was. This one is also kind of interesting. Again, these are her words. Rich people who were taught nothing of God. Bob Johnson and Kate Bell of Virginia, they told their parents to stop the clock at 1, and tomorrow would strike 1, and so it did. This was the signal that they had entered everlasting punishment. The independent hog, which ran 500 miles from Georgia to Virginia, her name was Betts. So I'm not sure exactly. Oh, sorry, that was this one right here. Then we've got the creation of animals. And then we have, of course, the crucifixion of Christ. And the last one is Romare Bearden. This is Mecklenburg County Daybreak Express. So Romare Bearden was born in 1911 in Charlotte, North Carolina. Died in New York City in 1988. He went to college at Lincoln University, went then to Boston University, and completed at New York University. Got a degree in education. While he was at NYU, he was lead cartoonist and an editor for the monthly journal The Medley. He had been art director for the Bean Pot, which was the student humor magazine of Boston University. He ended up going to the Sorbonne in Paris, again being a cartoonist for several newspapers. Joined the Harlem Artists Guild. In the 1930s through the 1960s, he was a social worker with the New York City Department of Social Services and worked on his art in the nights and weekends. He had his first solo exhibition in Harlem in 1940 and his first solo show in D.C. in 1944. So he did watercolors, oils, photo montages, prints, and collages. Though I think he's probably the most well-known for his collages such as this.